Okay, so welcome to the session, Gender Justice for All.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am so excited to be here. My name is Kim Carter. I am the founder of Time for Change Foundation. I'm also the president and CEO of what I call CHAMP, the Center for Housing Advancement and Motivational Projects. But before I was any of that, I was a girl looking for gender justice. Before I was any of that, I was one of those ones who was getting fragmented services and it wasn't able to meet the whole need. And I was deemed as a person, she just doesn't really want it, or, she's not participating, but nobody understood my trauma. So I'm so excited to be a part of this conference today. I love the topic. I love everything it stands for. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Is somebody gonna do my slides? Okay, so in the educational world, your learning objective for today are these three items right here. The number 2 item I'm particularly, in love with, because I can recall when I started my organization, I was privileged to be with some women who were going for their doctoral degrees at Loma Linda, and they were talking in this language. I was like, what is they talking about? And what I gathered from going to the American Public Health Association's conference was that in order for a disease to exist, it must have 3 things: an environmental agent and the host. And so I thought about the disease of incarceration and how it had plagued the communities that I come from, and how we can pretty much predict who's going to be susceptible to that disease. And I thought, if we can look at, bubonic plague was my favorite term at the time. Now you can say COVID, but bubonic plague, and we can say how to intervene in that, how to prevent the spread. Why can't we do the same thing for incarceration? At this time, between the 80s and the 90s, they built like 33 prisons over that time period, only one educational institution. So I created programs with my organization that encompasses the environmental agent and host. And so the other part about that is that there are these practices, that there are these norms, and there's these, just the way things are, that are really undermining the ability for women to live their fullest lifestyles. Next slide, please. So what do we know about gender justice? I like to say, and it's intersected with trauma. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we recognize, and I did a lot of work with Barbara Owens, Barbara Bloom, Joan Pelicilia, Stephanie Covington, like I grew up with these women. And one of the things that we realize is that when women start going to prison based on the drug addiction, right, which is a mental health disorder in the DSM book, what we saw is that the increased rate of incarceration and the way the justice system responded to our illness was to develop more and more prisons, and that no one understood we were in those cells, that we had a different pathway into crime, and that we were doing survival. And not only that, we had a lot of things that had happened to us before we was incarcerated. As a result, we have been traumatized. It's not by accident that 80% of women inside of prisons have been sexually molested before the age of 5. It's not by accident that we was raised in single parent homes with no fathers. Not by accident that we was in communities that had poor performing schools, poor health care, no parks, no green space, no environmental justice. It's not by accident. So it was actually by design. And that's why we got to look at some of these current sentencing laws and how they was based on, like we say, male characteristics. I was fortunate to be on the Gender Responsive Strategy Commission appointed by Secretary of Corrections. And one of the things that we talked about was, who's deciding which underclothes women in prison wear? Who's deciding what bra we get to wear? Who's deciding how much food you need when you're pregnant in prison? And someone sitting there and said, oh, well, she only needs, 2 extra calories. Well, she had a morning breakfast, but they don't understand morning sickness. They don't understand what it's like to be without and be under stress. And they don't understand how stress creates that cortisol, which makes you earlier susceptible to having predetermined labor. They don't understand all that. So we had to come in as women, and we had to make sure we bring in gender justice. That's where the gender justice come into play, because we are women, that there are some things that need to be considered, that need to be factored in and accounted for. Next slide, please. So again, just keep hitting it till all these circles show up, right? So I can't just go to Department of Behavioral Health and get, some medication for psych meds, because guess what? I got some other issues like domestic violence and homelessness. Oh, I just can't go to the drug program. When I get out of the drug program, I got nowhere to live because I'm suffering from some other trauma when I go back to my family. So you got to look at us with all the intersectionalities need to come into the play. And you got to be able to address the whole woman. Next slide. And so what do we know about women involved in the CJ system? Some of what I said earlier, but this is all documented evidence. You guys probably already know this. Next slide. So here's my baby right here. So this is called the disease of incarceration model that I created using that environment, agent, and host. And this is what they also call in public health language, the epidemiology modeling for social ecological framework. So using the epidemiological model for social ecological framework, it just meaning in my terms, using the pathway, using the process and the pathway to incarceration as a means to create, a full service program. Next slide. All right, so when I use that public health lens, what I noticed in the environment that there was exclusionary laws for housing and employment. Back then you had a felony conviction, you was convicted of drugs, you couldn't get food stamps, you couldn't get in public housing, you couldn't live with nobody in public housing, you couldn't get Section 8, you was denied school loans, you was just denied everything because you was on drugs. Now, mind you, had you been Jeffrey Dahmer and, bullied some kids and ate them, you would be qualified for all those things. There was restrictive practices in place to keep us away from our families, limited health to access to health care, being in those neighborhoods and having these parole conditions that just wasn't even conducive to us being successful. The other part of that is the host, meaning the individual who's carrying that disease, that person disenfranchised, low earning capacity. Sometimes that trauma is generational. We do a lot of 2-generational work, and sometimes it goes into 3 generations. We see how the mother has been affected by this, her mother, and now her kid have all been affected by domestic violence. And so we do that. What we also see is that, children have the low self-esteem and low self-worth. And again, some of the regulars, mental health substance abuse. And then on the right-hand side, you see the agent, which is I call it the incarceral system. So the incarceral system has always been over-policed and underprotected in communities of color. It's always been a biased justice system. It's not equal and it's not fair. And we continue to fight for equity. We continue to fight for fairness. We continue to fight for us, justice for us. And we have another thing about profiting off incarceration. When people are in prison, they're put to work immediately, and that's called slave labor. They're paid $1 an hour, and those services and those skills are running an institution that's so wealthy, they ain't even funny, but they would not spend no money in actually doing some prevention. The other thing is this disproportionate sentencing, and you guys know the systemic racial disparities. So I'm gonna go on and tell you, since I was a girl on fire and I decided to go out here and break myself into this world of the health scene and show how my program will work, I'm going to ask her to get ready for that little video. She's going to show you guys a little bit of video to show you some of the work that I've done that has been highlighted, because I decided to not just be a victim, but an overcomer. I decided to not let my experiences of incarceration, molestation, be the end all. I decided to do something with that to help other people. Go right ahead, Beth.
You may not know this, but the United States leads the industrialized world with the number of homeless women and children. Many of the women are victims of domestic violence. Some are just getting out of prison. Our next hero focuses her work on rebuilding these women's lives in California and San Bernardino County. To share her extraordinary story is a supporter of the Representation Project, which tries to end stereotypes and stop social injustices. She's the Emmy-nominated star of Orange is the New Black. I'm a huge fan. Taylor Schilling.
When we see a homeless woman and she's high, covered head to toe in filth, or she's crying, most of the time we look away, cross the street. But Kim Carter doesn't, because she survived that journey to the depths of despair. At 5 years old, she was given her first drink. At 17, she took a hit of crack cocaine and was hooked. For more than a decade, she lived in alleys and abandoned buildings, had a daughter and gave her up, and cycled in and out of prison. During her last time inside, Kim enrolled in a rehabilitation program and worked for her second chance. She rebuilt her life with a new home, a new job, and she reconnected with her daughter. And in 2002, she wanted to help other women do the same and started the Time for Change Foundation. Kim and her staff have provided counseling, childcare, and job training to hundreds of women and children as they transition into permanent housing. Kim and the women and children she's helped are why we have to stop crossing that street. We must stand with them, get to know them, so they can find their second chance and realize the potential that resides in their hearts too.
This is my old housing unit right here, Barneberg. When I was deepest in my addiction, I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. I never thought about life. I never thought about saving myself. But after I became a mother, then it became haunting. So this is it. This was my bunk right here. I spent years laying right here. This is the reality of what my life had came to this 2x4. You can almost touch the wall. That's how tight it is in here. Sometimes when I went to jail, it was a blessing because I was able to lay down and I was able to sleep and I would be let out again, back out into homelessness. Good morning, family. Good afternoon, family. How y'all doing today? Good. So my name is Kim Carter, W number 25395, W number 49068. And I say that so you can know that I am you and you are me. My last time in prison, and I remember sitting there thinking, what happened? There wasn't one thing that happened. A lot of things happened. Don't give up on yourself because you're still worthy. What option does a woman with nothing have to start over?
I've been homeless by almost 6 months.
We meet women where they are. In the bus station, at the hospital, coming out of jail. We'll pick them up and put them into an environment where they can heal.
It's a frightening experience. It's frightening.
My goal is for them to leave fully self-sufficient and to get their children back.
He was just very abusive. When I left with nothing. I got my 2 girls and left. We were sleeping in the cars, in motels, anywhere where I couldn't put their little heads down to sleep. I worked so hard to not lose them. I haven't had my girls for 1 year and 2 months now. Mama. It's been a long, long journey, fighting for them, trying to get them back.
Thank you, Miss Carter. Thank you.
I can't make up for the time that I lost with my daughter, but I can help make sure another mother doesn't lose time with theirs. I'm here. I'm not on the margins of society no more. I'm a part of society. I'm a change agent. Who knew?
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in honoring CNN hero Kim Carter.
If my life's work has to be measured and my determination defined, let it reflect that I do what I do because I love my daughter. I love my daughter. And I live with this pain because I wasn't able to be there for her when she was young. See, there was no Time for Change Foundation there for me. But see, my God, he allows me to make sure that no other mother has to go separated from her kids because she might need some help or because she might be homeless. That's what my God allows for me. Seeing this right there, where that pain is in me and that love is in me, that's where I find my passion and my purpose. That's where I find my dedication at. I get to help women reclaim their children, become those nurturing parents they always wanted to be. The work that I do, this is like the air that I breathe, so I can't stop. Thank you.
All right, so thank you guys. I just wanted to show you that little bit so you see how passionate I am about women, how passionate I am about women and children, and more importantly, why the work is so important. The last slide we left out on was just some more of that incarceration rates, talking about what's happening when a primary caregiver of the children is put in incarceration and the children are put into another system. And it's just all these systems that are compounded on top of women who has multiple complex issues. And sometimes it can be so detrimental to life. But then when you have an understanding, you're able to intervene, you're able to move past that. Next slide, please. So what does a successful reentry program look like? Next slide. It looks like a program that provides a woman with a safe and nurturing place to live. This looks like a place that understands that that woman has a voice, that she is somebody. She's just not a client that's to be laid in the bed and you just make money off of her presence. She is a person that has a voice. She's a person who has a history. She's a person that has some healing to do, but she also has some solution to her own problems, because people would never have known that inside the person with the most problems was also the solution. So what we say is, those who are closer to the problem are really close to the solution. The other part is there needs to be some support services available for women to be able to get back on their 2 feet, understand some of their own traumas, some of the coping skills to address those traumas, to be able to work through some of those issues, and more importantly, to be able to socially integrate back into society in a way where you are living your best life, not back in society because you are dependent on the system, but back into society where you are doing what God raised you up to do, to be productive. Next slide. So what we say is that we're always creating solutions that actually work for us. Next slide. Some data right here. We talked about, this is a positive futures reentry program that we have. And these are women who have been incarcerated. You must have been incarcerated for drugs or alcohol. You must be diagnosed with substance abuse and or mental health issues. And you must be coming back into one of the 5 cities in San Bernardino and we got this through a SAMHSA grant. So first it was a pilot, now it's a full-on program, because they didn't believe that we could actually, eliminate recidivism. And one of the things, out of the 2,800 women that we have served through that program, that's heavily evaluated and monitored. They got evaluators coming from Washington, D.C., evaluators coming from UCLA. Our positive future reentry program has a 98% success rate. Right. Our other program we have is called Positive Family Future Unification Program. And this is a program that we do with Kresge and the Aspen Institute. And what happens is we work with women who have lost their children into the system, and we work with them on unification. We work with them on healing, on binding. We get all of our children, parent-child interactive therapy. We address their school issue. We put them in an environment, in a home that's nurturing and supportive. We have gotten 315 children, I like to say, back from the grips of foster care system. And then our other program is called WISH. Well, here's Wellness is Stabilized Housing. And what we know is when a woman is fully working, she still may encounter, a battery goes out or whatever. We make sure that women have support services, they can continue to create assets and savings. And so out of 3,500 families that we have housed through our WISH program, 86% of those families are still housed. Next slide. These are the women right here. The women are me. I am these women, right? We have had some past, but you see those smiles, right? We come back from that. We come back into productivity. That building on the right. So sometime around 2012, I woke up with a passion like I cannot wait on the housing authority with this 5-year waiting list. I need to get these women moved through this housing program into permanent housing, and I need to do something about it quickly. So I decided to become an affordable housing developer, and I built my first building. It's called the Phoenix Square. Phoenix means rising from the ashes, because this is what you would call low-income housing, and it is so beautiful. And what I learned in the process is that when you're a developer, you get to pick the best products. You get to use the Kohler toilets, the brushed nickel sink. You get to put the best carpet in there, and women love it. So one of our things we say is we don't cycle homelessness. We end it, and we build the apartment buildings that we want. We're creating the environment we want to see. Next slide. Speaking out, using your voice. We are not victims of a system. We are voters. We have a voice. We are going out there. We went from breaking laws to making laws. So we go to Sacramento. We go to Washington, D.C. We advocate. We have politicians that call us, what do you think about so-and-so? That's right, because we are back, and we are back in our full citizenship. These are some of our women up here that's speaking up for themselves and using their voice. So one of the things about gender justice is that you get to speak up. You get to stand up. You get to advocate. You are civically engaged. Your voice do matter. And you know what? Your kids do matter. And guess what? Housing is a right, and education is a must. And that, my friends, is Time for Change Foundation. Next slide. We're always promoting a health, gender equity. We're always promoting fair chances. We're always promoting and changing laws like the prison rape. Just imagine you have to create a law that says the Prison Rape Elimination Act, because once they capture bodies and put them in those cages, they felt the need to do whatever they wanted to do. We have to create a law behind that. We got to create a law behind hospitals discharging people into homelessness, still walking around carrying a bag with IV and in their hospital gowns. No, you cannot treat people like that. Next slide. So I'm an author as well. This is my first book. It's called Invisible Bars, Barriers to Women's Healthy Well-Being During and After Incarceration. This is when I proved out my theoretical model, and I got my PhD instead of my PhD. Ha, ha, ha. All right, so what we learned about what works, we understand the realities and lived experiences of Black and brown women. We use that to inform all of our programs and make sure we do in person-centered care. We always are addressing the health disparities and the intersections of race, class, gender, sexual orientation, justice involvement, age, and experiences of the unhoused person at all times. Before I go to this next question, before I go to question and answer, I do want you to say, I am blessed, I am privileged, I am honored to be here today, to be sharing my experience, my strength, and my hope. I do want you to know that I do not take it lightly that God is using me, or I want you guys to know there will be a movie coming out. It's called Kim and Pepsi. Kim is my name now. Pepsi was my name in prison. And it's actually a movie where Jennifer Hudson, the one who played Aretha Franklin, will be playing me, and it was directed by Taraji P. Henson. If you want more information on that, you got to go to the Time for Change Foundation's website, and you'll be able to see, all the hoopla behind that. You can also probably go on YouTube and Google Kim Carter. A lot of stuff comes up. Long story short is the world needs to know that women are here. We're coming back. We're matter. We're not invisible. I just want everyone to know that that's what we stand for. Again, thank you very much. Any questions? I want everybody to get unmuted at the same time. I need to hear some noise. I'm really, really high energy. So everybody unmute. Say what's up.
Kim, what a wonderful story. You've contributed so much to this world, and we all appreciate you so much. There were some comments about what a great book you have. And you, PhD, I love it. It's great.
I found myself in rooms with people with doctorate degrees, multiple alphabets. I was sitting there like, Lord, how did I get here? Why are we all on the stage together? I said, okay, you know what? They got their PhD, I have my PhD. There it is. So I had to boost myself up to feel comfortable, in my own skin, to be in their presence. So I just coined that phrase and hold my head up, and I just keep on pushing.
That's right. That's right. For sure.
And I know we had one of my colleagues on, Vanessa Perez is also the executive director of Time for Change Foundation. Like I said, I went on to become the ambassador, and she's here. And, give a shout out to Vanessa.
Hi, Vanessa. Welcome, and thank you for putting the link in the chat box. I saw that. That's wonderful.
Hi, everybody. You're welcome. Go ahead and click on it. You can find all of our stuff, like she said, everything on Pepsi and Kim, and all the amazing work that we do.
Kim, in looking at sort of the roles of folks who are here today, we have social workers, case managers, counselors, an equity manager. If there's one sort of piece of advice you'd have for folks in these roles in working with women who are reentering?
Keep your eyes on the client. Do not let a pre-formed template of a document that you have to check off the boxes guide your work. Yeah, it has to be done for the system, for the funding, for the Medicare. I get it. But do not forget that that's just a tool that we use to really help the people. And those of you who are in this field, I want to congratulate you. Number one, I want to thank you. I want to thank you because it's a thankless job. It's a thankless job, and you always have the next client ready. But without you, who would do it? But I would say, keep your eyes on her. I would say, listen to her. And I would say, think about what she's saying that she needs. Don't bring into a pre-assumption, well, she needs to be here. Like, for example, I could say, oh my God, I have a client here. She has 3 kids. She needs to get her kids back. I can say that all day long, but I'm listening to her. And I'm asking, what are some of your goals? And when she's listing everything but those kids, guess what? I'm not going to start bringing up those kids, because if that's not a goal in you, then let me keep working with you what's in your way of blocking you from seeing that. Let me keep working with you so you can get to where you want to be, because I will not get kids from a system and put them in a house with a mom who don't even want to cook for them. I do not do that. And when we get our children from foster care back with their moms, we stay with them a whole 12, 13 months. Some of these clients still around 5 years later, but we stay with them the whole time. Because that's the one thing that was way heavy on my heart is for you to get out and all of a sudden you back on they call it top new ramen noodle, back on ramen noodle and Vienna sausages. No, we cook, we clean, we go to the park, we go to the schools, we go on picnics, we nurture children because they are our future. The equity manager, I just want to say, I would love to talk to you one day, because we working that uphill battle. We're right in the middle of building a technology hub where we're going to be having a Black and brown women be able to entrepreneurship, and it's all up. And the reason why we're doing that is because it's all about, if we keep trying to go to other systems and say we want to be equal to you, we're going to be fighting an uphill battle. Why can't we just concentrate on doing for ourselves? I believe in do for self. What can we create for ourselves? And so we're doing that now. And hopefully in a couple of years, you guys will hear something really great about that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you all for joining.